Like many of you, any day that starts out with a new airplane on the bench is a good day. And I've been looking forward to this Tundra from HobbyKing for a couple of reasons. I've heard that it flies very well, plus it comes with an Fpv platform. And the Tundra comes with a nice float set so I can go fly off of the water when we have one of those meets in our area. Whenever you're opening up a new airplane, particularly one that has a foam insert, and that means even ones that don't have this warning on the bottom, I know that most of you will see something like this and actually look for the parts. But there's a few of you out there with bubbles in a think tank or something, you'll just say that they never sent you the parts even though you threw them away with the box. In the case of the Tundra, it actually has a parts bag on the bottom. Some of the manufacturers are putting them instruction manuals down here because they stay nice and flat and don't get torn up. Then we can turn it over and open up the box and find that once again we had an airplane make it from the Far East in perfect shape. Right on top is a set of floats that come with the Tundra. These come with all the hardware you need and can be put on the airplane surprisingly quickly. Now, if you listen to some of the experts on the forums, you'll find that HobbyKing just isn't capable of making an instruction manual this well done. But here it is anyway. And it is nicely done. I know it's hard to believe, but there's a pretty good chance that some of the experts on the internet forums are full of crap. Flaps come with these knee-type hinges that let you set up any kind of flap angle you want from 0 to 90 degrees. At 90 degrees, they're less flapped than they are air brakes, but I'll bet you that's there for a reason. One of the first things I do with any electric model is to take the prop off. You should balance all props yourself, so it has to come off anyway. Before I balance the props, I lightly sand the edges to get rid of any flashing that may be left over from manufacturing. That stuff can be like a razor blade. Just a little light sanding smooths the edges out and makes it a little bit safer. The fuselage also made the trip without a problem. But when I was looking at the wing mounts, I saw something I didn't expect. The aileron servos are wired to a plug in the root of the wing that plugs into this one when you assemble the wings onto the fuselage. That means less messing around when you put the wing on, and also way less chance of forgetting to plug the ailerons in. The windshield area covers the battery compartment and is held on with a magnet. The electronic speed control comes installed with all its connections made. It has hook and loop material stuck to it, but you have to peel off the last layer and stick it to the side of the cabin. The battery gets installed here also. I cleaned the floor of this compartment to be sure that the hook and loop material would stick to it. There's another compartment behind the wing where the back servos are, and we put the receiver. This opening doesn't afford much access and it makes getting the receiver in and wired a little difficult. I needed to use an 8-channel receiver because I'm going to have head tracking in the FPV system. This wasn't a lot of fun getting everything hooked up with the short wires, but I got it finally and it's stuck in place. I also have a satellite receiver mounted forward in the cabin to the side wall of the cabin. A nice feature of this kit is that the fasteners come in bags that are labeled for their size, and that corresponds to what it says in the instructions. I know that just seems like it'd be common sense, but you very rarely see it. The landing gear might look a little complicated, but it's really not, and it's explained well in the instructions. And the springs really are functional and do cushion the harder landings. I accidentally tested the suspension a little bit during the initial flights, and it worked just fine. The wheels are 4 inches tall, and are also made out of foam, so they're very light. I know some are complaining about the wheels being foam, but if they made them out of rubber, this plane may not get off of the ground. Practice your landings and touch and goes a little bit, and these are just fine. The tail wheel is nicely sized and mounts directly to a plate in the rudder. That makes for very predictable steering and ground handling. When you put the floats on, the tail wheel is replaced by this rudder. And yes, it is long enough to actually reach the water. And here are the floats that come with the kit, ready to go on the plane. Having separate gear struts like this makes the changeover from floats to wheels very easy. There is some carbon reinforcements in this plane, and this on the corner of the elevator is most obvious. You're not supposed to be landing in weeds tall enough to get in here in the first place, but when you do, this will help protect the elevator. There is a carbon spar that helps reinforce the horizontal stabilizers. The horizontal stabilizers fit nicely and are screwed in so you can take them off to replace them, or if you need it smaller for transport. The main wing is also reinforced by a tubular spar. The wing is also supported by a pair of functional struts. The kit comes with these Phillips head screws that I replace almost every time because I strip them out. Whenever possible, I replace them with these servo screws that I get from RTL Fasteners. These screws hold great in a lot of situations, and I love the hex head on them. I've stripped a bunch of Phillips head screws in my time, but I still haven't stripped one of these hex-headed screws from RTL Fasteners. RTL has these screws in a bunch of different sizes and finishes. Oh, and I do use them for putting my servos in also. All of the control horns are factory installed, but we do have to make up the linkages. It turns out that the lengths that linkages were set at from the factory were pretty close, but I did dial them in a little bit to get them just right. I spent some time going through the settings on all of the control surfaces to have them just right according to the manual. I set up 3-level dual rates on the Tundra, with the middle rate being what the factory calls for. I like to have one setting where I just use all of the control throw I can get. For me, one of the important selling points on the Tundra was the included Fpv platform. We do have to put it together, but it fits right in place where the windshield was, so it makes changing over to FPV quick and easy. And we don't have to modify the plane to get this stuff in there. I have to tell you that the maiden flight went so well with the Tundra, and it flew so well, that after that I put the FPV gear on it, and it's been on ever since. And we'll show you a couple of those flights once we get done with the maiden video. I can tell you that the Tundra flies just great, handles beautifully. But you're going to have to come back and see that once we get the maiden video completed.